That's what I wanted.
Marion, do you want to make me a
Co-host? Yep. Can somebody help me admit people? Oh, Melissa, you can help me because I'm going to make you
Exactly.
co-host. That'd be
And
great.
if you need another hand, just make me host and I can do whatever.
Thank you. Where's Melissa? Ah, here you are. More. Make co-host. Okay, you're co-host. Well, hi, everyone. So let us get started. So I think everybody knows what's going on for tonight. Senator Kavanaugh is going to meet with us at 7:15, so we don't have a lot of time to get going. The idea is that we will have some updates from our local interests. I think I don't see Bill on here, but I know he has something that he wants to announce about the traffic. Catherine's going to announce about, Catherine's going to give us an update. Catherine, you want to start with that about East River?
Sure. I mean, well, the bad news is we lost. We went to the Court of Appeals, as you know. The judge at the Court of Appeals initially signed an order setting it down for us to argue leave to appeal and setting a stay or TRO. And that's why everyone got so upset, because the city informed us after 2 days of obeying the TRO, they weren't going to obey the TRO. So as you know, a lot of people were out protesting. And then we filed an order, a motion to show cause for the city to show cause why they shouldn't be held in contempt. Everything was returnable on the 16th. And the 17th, I guess, we got the decision from the court that we lost. And they denied the leave to appeal. They denied an injunction as moot, and they denied the order of the motion for contempt. And we'll have to say we were surprised because they didn't give us a reason. They simply said denied. And it's unusual when a judge signs an order to show cause for a motion to show why the city shouldn't be held in contempt. It was surprising that they then came back and dismissed that. So it was a little, as I said, surprising, but that's where we are right now. The Court of Appeals is the highest court in the state of New York. I guess there is some talk about a federal case, but most of us at this point involved with East River Park action are really saying that now we're concentrating on what we can do for the neighborhood to make sure that things are done safely, to try to avoid as much as possible air pollution and toxins in the air, and talk about interim flood relief. So that's about it, unless someone has a question.
Thank you, Catherine. That was very succinct and really on point. Did I see a hand up?
Well, I just wanted to add one thing, because people may have realized that last week the city went in, started work on Friday, worked 24 hours a day, 7 days a week until Monday to destroy everything in the park, while the issue of the contempt was still an open issue before the court. So it was, and of course, miraculously this weekend, there was no work done. So they went in purposely 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The workers got double overtime to destroy the park in basically 3 days.
And if I can add to that, that just made us more confident, quite honestly, that we were going to win the motion for contempt and leave to appeal, because clearly the city realized that there was a real possibility that they would lose. So they just went, you know, great guns and destroying everything in their wake.
Yep. I know. Anyway,
I've got a question.
Lee, yeah, I saw Lee, your hand. Thank you.
First of all, thank you, Judge Freed and Tommy and everybody else that really tried their best. My question is, you know, no matter how you come down on this plan, whether you were for this or against this, Judge Freed, my concern is how the lack of response from most of our elected officials and governmental agencies during the last couple of weeks to residents' concerns. And what is very troublesome is going forward, let's say that there's a problem in environmental concern. Let's say people see that, discharge from the fill, or there's excess noise or unsafe conditions. What are we going to do knowing that for the last 2 weeks, city agencies and some agency heads who may be out in a week and a half, and as well as some electeds who will be out in a week and a half, but some who were remaining didn't even respond. So how are we supposed to, what are we supposed to do? What's the community supposed to do? Again, whether they were for the plan or against the plan, as the plan, as construction and goes forward, if there are concerns and problems, who are we supposed to go to that seems like they'll listen?
Mhm.
It's particularly concerning because particularly after, I don't know if people saw it, but we also got a very strong statement from the National Lawyers Guild, the environmental section, saying that the actions of the city were really abhorrent and that they really should have been held in contempt. And we couldn't even get officials to say that much, that at least the city shouldn't be going in and destroying the park until there's a decision from the court. And
Well,
for
those of you who were on the executive committee meeting last week know that I confronted Jimani Williams as public advocate and asked him to do something, and I got a call back today. So, so the park's gone now, and he was really unresponsive, which is really too bad.
I probably should add that I did, working with environmental advocates, which is really Joel Kupferberg's group, who's also connected to the National Lawyers Group, that through him, I did file an official complaint with the EPA about and ask them to check in first on the amphitheater, because we don't know, admittedly, part of the amphitheater was renovated, so we don't know how much the older original amphitheater is there, but the original amphitheater certainly would have had cement, and it certainly would have had asbestos in it. And we got no response. Several people called the DEP, and I don't think we got a response. And I also pointed out that there are 2 other buildings that are over 80 years old that certainly have asbestos, and also the fact that the EIS shows that there are all kinds of toxins from lead and arsenic and all sorts of things that are in the soil from the landfill out there. And the city doesn't seem to be doing anything.
I think maybe we should have a special meeting just to process all this, because there's a lot. And, I think there's all of that is right. And I just think that we have a lot on our agenda tonight, and we could end up spending the rest of the meeting. And I would like to hear more about all of that. And maybe as a club, we want to come up with some response about the environmental dangers that we're facing now, and figure out who to go to and how to move that forward. Does that sound okay?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
Be glad to be involved.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I just want to add that I feel like, again, kind of like Lee said, that's an issue that a lot of the local clubs should want to band together on, even though things are very contentious right now for some reason, but
I think that would be great, actually.
Yeah.
So maybe we're going to be doing a lot of joint forums, so maybe that would be a good opportunity to raise this and try to get some support. Okay, I'm aware of the time. So Bill, did you have a traffic? You wanted to announce something about traffic?
Yeah, just quickly, we have so far 18 people have signed up for the traffic working group. And some of them are not even Grant Street Dems, so I'm going to keep trying to reach out. But I've scheduled a meeting for anyone's interested. I'm actually going to broadcast it to the wider community if I can reach people for it's Tuesday, January 4th. I wanted to do it after all the holiday stuff. So I will send something out to just ask people to save the date if they can make it, and also send people, I'll also include a link to send people, even if they're not Dems, to sign up about traffic. Everyone hates the traffic here, so this should be an easy unifying thing. So it's a January 4th, Tuesday, 7 o'clock. I'll try to keep it down to an hour and 15 minutes, hour and a half. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other local issues? We have at 7:15, we have Senator Kavanaugh as part of our State Senate Forum. Unfortunately, we were also going to have IAPA, Sire Tupac, but he has dropped out of the race, so he won't be joining us tonight. After that, we will have Chris Marte and Connor, I just lost Connor's last name, are going to do a presentation about the Chinatown Working Group Zoning Plan. Vittoria Fariello is going to come and do a presentation about the 5 World Trade Center, which, as you know, the executive committee has already agreed to sign on to, but we want full, full group approval. So after that, we're going to ask everybody who's a non-voting member to log off so we can do some voting. Kenny and I have gone through the whole voting process.
I've been
Kenny?
taking attendance, Marion. I've been taking attendance.
I love it.
So we're all
I
good.
love it.
Yeah.
Thank you. So Kenny's going to start doing the, is it OPA? The vote OPA or something for our endorsement meetings. But
Yeah.
for this one,
Yeah.
we decided to do it a little more simplified and just ask everyone who's not a voting member to sign up so we can kind of have conversation while we're voting about these resolutions. Does that sound good? Any other local issues that anyone wants to raise in the next 3 minutes before we invite Senator Kavanaugh to speak to us? Okay, then I saw Senator Kavanaugh, are you on?
I am. I was trying to figure out if I'm supposed to get off because you're gonna because I'm a non-voting member. But
No, we're gonna ask everyone to get off. You don't have to get off because there's no other state Senate candidates with us tonight because
Okay.
it's such a moving target. But
Yeah.
it's your forum, so we're going to give you 20 minutes.
Okay, great.
And you can take whatever amount of time you want for presentation, and then the rest of the time for Q&A.
Okay, great. Can you? Sorry, I look like I'm in some scary dark place, but can you see me and hear me? Okay, more or less.
Yeah, you're not the
Okay,
only one, by the way.
Okay. All right. Well, first of all, so thank you all for the opportunity to speak with you. Thank you for all the work that Grand Street Dems do all year round. And, over the last 4 years, really have become, a major force in this neighborhood, both, on local issues and obviously on participating in the democratic process. So appreciate that. I can't see all of you, but, thanks to Marion and Sandra and Julie and Kenny, Mackenzie and Melissa, and the district leaders, Carolyn and Lee. I saw Lee was here. I'm not sure about Carolyn. And I think Chris Marte is also here. So great to see you as well. I think you've heard from a bit about this race from the other candidates. I am Brian Kavanaugh. I am the incumbent senator for the 26th Senate District. That is a big chunk of lower Manhattan from river to river, and also a good about a third of the district is in Brooklyn, running from Greenpoint down through many neighborhoods to just north of Red Hook, and a bit out into Brooklyn as well, like into further inland in some spots into South Williamsburg. Since the Democrats won the majority in the Senate in 2018, beginning with our 2019 session, we really have been transforming virtually every aspect of the state's laws and policies and budgetary priorities toward a much more progressive vision of government and its purpose and the way we need to serve people. I am really grateful for the opportunity to represent this community and all the communities I represent, and I never take it for granted. It's an honor to stand for re-election now in what is, as Marion noted, a sort of fluid field, I guess I'll say. As legislators, one of the most important things we do, of course, is to try to pass the laws that really make a difference statewide and in our local communities. And I've been really a leader in making sure the Senate delivers on the progressive change that people need, particularly in the area of housing, where I chair the housing committee, and that's sort of my bailiwick to take the lead on those issues for the Senate. So just to review, just going to mention a few highlights. Since 2019, we started 2019 by passing what is literally the strongest tenant protection legislation in the United States. I would argue in the last half century. It fully revamped the rent stabilization laws that protect 2.5 million New Yorkers in rent stabilized housing. And it also did a great deal to alter the basic terms of other landlord-tenant relations, including particularly the eviction process. So we saw in the period from the end of, from the HSTPA taking effect on June 15th of 2019 until just before the pandemic, a very significant reduction in evictions in New York City, but also in places like Buffalo. Since the pandemic, we've obviously had to shift really into kind of emergency and crisis response in so many areas, including housing. We passed and have maintained now an eviction and foreclosure moratorium. It's basically a blanket eviction or foreclosure moratorium and legislation that I wrote and passed 3 times now in kind of 4-month increments. It's in place now through January 15th. And it covers evictions and foreclosures on homeowners and renters and also small businesses, as well as tax lien sales and other ways people might lose their homes or their businesses. We did a emergency rental assistance program, a little under $3 billion. It comes with federal money, from mostly federal money, but also a significant chunk of state money. And we wrote into that bill much stronger eviction protections than the federal law provided for. We also did a homeowner assistance fund, nation's best mortgage forbearance bill for homeowners to the extent they are, regulated by the state, and many other. This is kind of added to the other things that were intended to provide direct relief. Most notably, a $2.1 billion excluded worker fund. That was not my bill, but I was one of the champions of it, and that is entirely state funded. To my knowledge, we're the only state in the nation that has even begun to address the fact that so many people were excluded from the federal, basically any of the federal relief, and particularly the unemployment system. So we did that with a $2.1 billion program, which is now spent, which demonstrates the need. We need to go into this next year and add more money to that, as well as to those emergency rental assistance program. Just super quickly, we've had a very busy year this year as well. The governor just signed my bill, that is the Family Homeless and Eviction Prevention Supplement Program. It's called FEPS more commonly. It's a program that's intended to get people out of shelter and into permanent housing. The state has handicapped that program for a long time in making it, just basically such that the vouchers aren't really worth much and can't be used to get permanent housing. We pushed long for the state to change it administratively and eventually passed a law. And as I said, the governor just signed it the other day. We have a very ambitious fair housing package that came out of some very extensive hearings and investigation that I did as housing chair, along with Senator Skoufis, who chairs investigations, and Senator Thomas, who chairs consumer affairs. And again, we passed this very broad package that's intended to ferret out discrimination in the housing markets, both rental and homeowners. It creates an affirmatively further and fair housing obligation at the state level, which is on a bill I wrote. And again, that is currently on the governor's desk. I am expecting she's going to sign it soon. And then we also did a bill that's of interest locally, which is about Mitchell-Lama co-op privatization. There have been battles for many years to privatize those things. We passed a bill, Linda Rosenthal on the Upper West Side and I worked on it with Mitchell-Lama United, which is basically an umbrella of all the cooperators around the city that are interested in protecting these buildings from privatization. That also, it's on the governor's desk. We're hoping that it has to be signed or vetoed by tomorrow. We're hoping that's going to get a signature. I know the time is short, so I'm going to try to sum up. But we've done a lot of work on climate and the environment. I've been a champion of election reform for many years, including the 2 things that unfortunately just went down on the ballot when the voters got their opportunity. But we really have made, as my colleague Zellner Meyer likes to say, we've gone from worst to first in terms of the quality of our election laws, or at least we're getting there. We made huge investments in education this year, finally closing out our obligations under the Campaign for Fiscal Equity in a deal that gets phased in over the next few years. I founded the a caucus on gun violence prevention many years ago. And our work resulted first in the SAFE Act, which brought New York's gun violence prevention laws into the sort of modern era where you actually need to pass a background check in order to get a gun and restrict assault weapons and high capacity ammunition magazines. Since then, we've continued to work on that, something called the red flag law sometimes, or extreme risk protection orders, which is a bill I authored that basically allows in the civil process, courts to remove somebody's rights to have an access to guns if they're likely to cause harm to themselves or others. I think you know a lot of the other issues: police reform, criminal justice reform.
Yeah.
I want to. I'm actually lost
Yeah,
track.
so
So.
he called and said, "Oh, do you want a PCR?" or-
Julie, can you mute yourself, please?
Julie, hey, you're in the.
There you go.
Great.
Okay.
Thank
Sorry.
you. I thought Julie might be just making the point that I've gone on too long, which I probably have.
No, I'm timing you. You're good.
Okay, so maybe I should stop.
You got 12 minutes left.
Okay, so I do want to leave time for questions. I'm just obviously also, we've spent a lot of time working on local issues, and, backing up the residents of Grand Street Guild, as I think at least one of your officers is familiar with, Knickerbocker Village, which is going through this process of switching the ownership so that the rights of residents there are protected. I'm very proud to participate in your long battle against traffic on Grand Street, which I know has not been resolved, but I've been to your forums out on the street with you and, tried my best to affect that. And so many other issues, but I think I've gone on long enough, and I'd love to hear, questions or comments or anything else you'd like to offer. But thank you again for the opportunity.
Great, thank you. So do we have questions? Actually, I would like to just, if it's okay, ask the first question, which is, so the eviction moratorium ends on January 15th. It looks like Omicron is going to be around at least until then. This is a difficult time. What's the plan for continuing after January 15th?
I mean, the only real plan is to, what we did in May and the end of August, which is introduce the bill and try to get a consensus on both houses and from the to extend it. I like to, it's getting to the point where it's 25 days from now. So I usually say to people, we're going to really look at the data and see where we are. I am not optimistic that we're in better shape in terms of rates of transmission and deaths in the state. We're still seeing 40 or 50 people die every day in the state. There's very compelling evidence that eviction moratoria are an effective way of preventing the spread of COVID, and of course, the economic harm that people suffer if they're evicted in the middle of a pandemic. So, I favor keeping it in place as long as it's necessary to protect people. But I'm going to have to have that conversation. It was surprisingly challenging to extend it in August. And again, I led that process and debated on the floor and got it passed. But I will take it up again in January.
Thank you. Melissa.
Okay, sorry, I'm admitting and trying to.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. You sort of glossed over investments in education, and I was hoping that you could expand on that. What exactly does that mean?
Okay, I was trying to gloss through a lot to get to all of you. So I'm glad we have a question on that.
Yeah.
So the biggest role the state has in education is ensuring that there's adequate funding. A lot of the funding comes, there's federal funding. Obviously, the city of New York does a lot through direct tax levy, but the state has a big obligation, and that obligation was magnified and really more firmly established by a court case many years ago called Campaign for Fiscal Equity, which required that the state basically said that the sound basic education is a right, and it required that the state make sure that places like New York that have a lot of needy students are not being shortchanged. And notwithstanding that case and an order from the highest court in the state, it was a years-long battle to get that fully funded, to get basically there's a form, it's education is a little complex. I think you know it well, Melissa, but there's a thing called the foundation aid formula, which sets the amount that each district would be entitled were they fully funded. And basically each year in negotiations, particularly with the Republicans in the Senate and the governor, the New York City school system and some others would be underfunded. We did in this budget a deal to implement full funding with we did significant increases in taxes this year, much more progressive taxation, generate a lot of money. And we now have a 3-year phase in, so we get to fully funded schools. And, so that's a significant thing. We need to work a lot more on, we also authorized the pre-K in New York. That is the great achievement of the de Blasio administration, as you hear often from them. But there are many parts of the state where they don't even have kindergarten. So making we need to continue to work on that. I've also just on the related issue of childcare. My colleague Jabari Bresport he's the chair of our Children and Families Committee, and we've been working. He has been really leading on this, but we really are working on making childcare a core obligation and finding ways to fund it in much the manner that we fund public schools. Like when you show up for school, they don't ask if you're, needy enough. Do you need assistance for schooling or not? They just provide it. And it's such a, it's a basic service that is provided all over the world, in places, any place that has the kind of financial wherewithal, but shamefully not in the United States. So that's sort of looking forward, an area where we're really working.
Because obviously the pandemic has brought out just the inequity across our own city. And
yeah, no, it's extraordinary. Yeah.
Yeah, having 2 kids, one's at a Title I school and one is at a well-funded school. So, I see the inequity right in my own house. And
I agree. Yeah.
I'm wondering if any of this funding or future funding is going to go to make the schools more equitable. You can, PTAs can't do all the funding.
No, I know. And I we've seen this for a long time. And again, the idea, part of the problem is that PTAs that step in and try to do their best also, some PTAs will have a lot more ability to do that than others, the resources locally. So obviously everybody appreciates the generosity, but it really should not be something that, you shouldn't be raising money for like teaching assistants or supplies in the classroom or anything else for that matter. So we really are, the goal of this money, obviously the administration of the schools is primarily a city matter, but we really, we took a big step to make sure that the funding is there. The new administration and, there's a new chancellor and I think they're gonna have to work to make sure they'll implement it. I will say this year, it's hard. Nothing is, normal this year. So I think it's hard to see the impact of the money we put in this year because we also did a lot of money some federal money went directly to the schools to try to offset costs during COVID, and we try to do some of that as well. But I think it's been a crazy year in terms of everything, including the way they juggle expenses. But it should really mean a significant increase. And the bill is designed such that the city can't just offset our increase with a reduction. So we should get to the point where the schools really are, much better funded in the next couple of years. Thanks.
If I might, I'm going to move us up. We've got about 5 or 6 hands up. Jasmine.
Hi, everyone. I have a question in regards to public housing. I know that you presented a bill to introduce the blueprint without speaking to constituents in district. And now with the BBB pretty much being dead and not having funding to support Section 9 nor the TPV vouchers, will this trust plan be back on the agenda as well as a blueprint option? And if so, what stance are you going to take on that? And what will you do differently than the last cycle?
Thank you for the question, Jasmine. Nice to see you. I assume people have some familiarity with this, but first of all, I represent a lot of public housing and have worked for a very long time to get adequate funding, including trying to get $500 million in the state capital budget every year for many years. It has been a hard slog. I think the prior governor had a particular reluctance, I'm going to say nicely, to fund public housing. We've gotten a total of $650 million of state capital in the last 10 years or so, and it's grossly inadequate. I think we might get a better answer from the 5-year capital plan that's coming in January from the new governor that will certainly push for large amounts of public housing funding. The trust or the blueprint is a proposal that would permit NYCHA, if the bill were passed, to effectively transfer units of public housing developments and buildings to a new fully public entity that would then allow, with the approval of HUD, a different stream of funding to go to public housing in New York. It's hard to summarize, but that's roughly it. So it is not a privatization scheme in the sense that, NYCHA is a public entity. The new thing would be a public entity. And it does not have the private elements of RAD, which is, the rental. Well, it's basically a semi-privatization scheme where there's a private entity that partners with NYCHA to manage developments. We worked hard to get a bill that we thought was plausible. We did try to talk with I tried to talk with many tenants and tenant leaders, but decided late in the last session to introduce the bill, partly because bills that are not introduced cannot be read by anybody. So introducing it means the text is public. We got
Senator, I'm sorry, but there's 5 more questions.
Okay, I'll try
And
to be quick.
there's 2.5 moments. So yeah.
Okay,
if we could
sorry.
be-
All right, I'll try to be quick.
Thank
The
you
very
very
short
much.
answer is I committed in June that I would not move forward with that without getting much having ample opportunity for tenants to participate. And I will maintain that. And I'm happy to talk with you, Jasmine, or anybody else. And I have already been talking with tenants about that.
Great, thank you. Sandra.
Hi, pardon the mask. I have people here around.
That's okay.
Thank
I
you
just
for the
wanna-
mask.
I just want to say thank you, Brian. Brian, you mentioned Grand Street Guild. Brian was instrumental along with other elected officials in helping us here at Grand Street secure the 600 Section 8 tenants residency in perpetuity, and also for the 450 new apartments coming to be 100% affordable, and we defined affordability. I work with you often, Brian, and I thank you so much for your service.
Thank you.
That's all. Thank you.
Great, I like that. Quick,
That was a good
nice. Lee,
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. Thanks for coming, and thank you for everything that you're doing, especially all your accomplishments in housing. So let me ask you something that doesn't reach as many people as housing. I'm wondering about your support for Senate Bill 5536, which would require all city agencies to allow remote work to the extent possible for city employees. I know that something like this has been brought up in the past. I don't think it's left committee yet. I'm just wondering if that's something that you'll be supporting, especially in light of all the city workers that you have in district and
Right.
the COVID situation.
I would, if to the extent the city needs authorization to do that, I would be happy to authorize that. I do think that how the city manages workforce is something that, I for the state to step in and tell the city how to manage itself. I understand the need, and I allowed my staff to go remote a lot earlier than the Senate or anybody else did. I think I would work with my council, with your newly elected council member, who I think is still here. And if they need the state to authorize that or support it, I would be supportive. I would be reluctant to just mandate that from Albany without consultation with the city or the city.
Thank you.
great. Okay, that's time. We have 2 more. We have 1 more question. Tommy, can you be quick? And
Yes, I
Senator,
can.
can you be quick in your answer?
I'll try my best.
Okay,
Okay.
as you know, Senator, many of us are very upset about the destruction of East River Park. And for years now, we've been asking you to step in and use your agency in terms of your political clout or your bully pulpit to oppose the plan and help us at least educate the public as to what was happening. You never even helped us get the value engineering study. We had to go to court and spend $22,000 to do it. And now I just want to know, going forward, you always told us that it was because Carlina Rivera took a position and that you were not going to oppose that. Is that going to be your position going forward when it comes to city issues that you agree with or disagree with, that you're going to follow the lead of the council person, whether you agree or disagree?
So I'll try to keep in deference to Mary.
1 minute, and then
All right.
I'm
So
muting you.
The short answer is, as you know, thought that project required alienation. It went through the courts. That would have had it required alienation, they would have had to negotiate with me and my colleagues. I pushed really hard for that to be the notion, and my Senate and assembly colleagues took that position. The courts disagreed with us. On the question of whether the city should go forward with that, it went through not just one council member, 3 community boards, 3 council members, a borough president, an elaborate process. I think having state officials come in and counter what their duly elected city officials do it's not productive. The city did not at some point, I really told them that they should sort through alienation rather than rolling the dice and figuring they could get alienation. Having said that, if there is a need, and I'm horrified to see all the trees cut down too. I do think, you have again, had you had elections matter, had you had elections 2017, different outcomes in any of those districts, you would have had a different conversation about the park. There are many people in our community that support this terribly destructive thing because they think it's the only thing that's going to protect them from flooding. And
Sorry.
I would want to see something different. On the issue of work, I work with my city council colleagues, and to the extent there are environmental impacts of the construction, to the extent we need oversight of these agencies, I'm happy to do that, especially to the extent that state agencies are involved in the helpful.
Thank you very much for joining us. I'm sorry there's not ever more time. There'll be, there'll be other forums with the other clubs. So we very much appreciate your presence.
Right, and thank you all. I'm sorry to go on, but I do appreciate the opportunity and the complicated questions. And a lot of you have my cell phone number. If you want to call me and follow up, I'm happy to do that as well.
Great, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So Chris, next we're going to have a presentation by Christopher Marte, our council member elect, and Connor Allerton. Connor, do I need to make you co-host so you can?
Yeah, I think Connor has to be co-host.
Okay, more, there we go, make co-host. So he can show us a presentation. Now they're going to present to us the specifics of the Chinatown Working Group Zoning Plan. Before they even begin, I would like to point out, I sent it around to some of you, that the first tower in 2 bridges, they've just requested permission to start building that. And there's never been a time more important, in my opinion, for us to take some control over the zoning in our neighborhood.
Thank you, Marion. Thank you for that lead in. Hi, everyone. I'm Christopher Marte, council member elect. And yeah, like Marion said, we're feeling a lot of pressures from luxury developers to build what they want, how they want, and for who they want. And we ran our campaign on passing a rezoning for the Chinatown and Lower East Side area called the Chinatown Working Group. And our first hire as an office was Connor Allerton. Connor comes from Gail's office. He spent 2 years there. He's a really awesome land use expert. He worked on the Soho NoHo rezoning for her, the Seaport 250 Water Street rezoning for her. He was also the land use community liaison to Community Board 3. So Connor really knows our district. He's really passionate about our district. And I think he is the right person at the right time for this job. And so I'm gonna allow him to lead this discussion. And if you have any questions, I'll hop back on to help Connor answer them. So Connor, you can take it away.
Thanks, Chris. Hi, everyone. Nice to see everybody. My name's Connor Allerton. Excited to be here and to help with this project. So I think first I'll share my screen. Can everyone see that okay? Yep. Okay, so, I think probably many of you have heard about the Chinatown Working Group Plan in the past. It's been in development for quite some time. And I think today we're just going to go over a brief sort of overview of some context and sort of what we've been working on recently since I've sort of joined the team, and how we're trying to re-energize the movement for this plan and really hit the ground running in January. And this is all to say that we have a report that will be coming out briefly as well that kind of goes into a little more detail than this presentation. But I'm happy to answer any questions in the meantime. So first, just some background for the Chinatown Working Group and the plan.
So actually, Connor, let me interrupt for a second. Why don't you take 15 minutes and then a few minutes for questions, or 10 even, depends what, okay, thank you.
That sounds great. Yeah. So the Chinatown Working Group, it kind of came out of the 2008 rezoning of East Village, which protected some of that area against overdevelopment. It issued new, new zoning provisions around affordable housing, but it really excluded Chinatown and Lower East Side from a lot of this protective zoning. And it fueled, kind of added fuel to the fire of gentrification in those areas, as a protection of one area that kind of pushes speculation into the neighboring areas. So a petition that was signed by more than 11,000 people sort of protested this move by the city. And out of that came the Chinatown Working Group, which soon comprised of over 60 organizations, and really over the next few years developed their own plan to kind of protect what was left out of the East Village rezoning. They worked with the Pratt Center for Community Development to come out with this report in 2013. But in 2015, when they presented it to the city, DCP, the Department of City Planning, kind of shot down the proposal, calling it too ambitious. But since then, folks have continued to organize, and I think, with the council member elect's recent election, I think now's the time to really act on a lot of this history. So a bit about the campaign. Passing the Chinatown Working Group plan was always like a main priority of the council member elect's campaign, and I think focusing on such a local issue and something that a lot of people could organize around brought a lot of momentum to the campaign, and we're really excited to now be able to fulfill this goal. And it remains one of the #1 priorities of the office. So this report is kind of taking what was developed in 2013 and updating it with new data and new statistics that back up the same narrative, and kind of prepping the plan itself for its sort of application period toward the city, to kind of get it as ready as possible for that pre-certification and ULURP land use review process that it would have to go through. And there's a new petition that has over 10,000 signatures that backs this plan. So, the momentum is definitely still there. And, we're just keep moving forward. So some area context, basically setting up the scene for the area, and, then getting into a little bit of like, why this rezoning is so important. So just talking about demographics, that Chinatown and Lower East Side are majority neighborhoods of color, with Asian and Latinx populations making up about 3/4 of the residents. And the median income is about $35,000, which is about half the citywide median income, and 30% of the area median income, which is how the city bases affordability. And so it's definitely, a low income community of immigrants, community of color. And as we know, that those statistics definitely interact with speculation and displacement in very sort of like they're definitely related. And 26% of households live below the poverty line, and yet over half, more than the citywide average, percentage of families are rent burdened, so they pay too much of their income, more than 30%, on rent. So even though the Lower East Side, the gross rent is $968 per month, which is relatively low for Manhattan, that kind of loses. That doesn't really. I think when you look at the other statistics surrounding that, it shows that this, as a low-income community, people are still really pressured by outside forces to move somewhere more affordable as rents go up. Getting into those issues, rent has increased 13% over the last 10 years, while median income has kind of stagnated in the area. And so without that income rising with rent, the area is becoming less and less affordable, which leads to such high rates of rent burden. HPD, housing violations, have more than tripled in recent years, showing as an indicator of illegal tenant harassment. Other indicators like small businesses closing, people moving out or being legally evicted, like these rates are all there. All these statistics are present and sort of overrepresented in this area. And while the mayor says that he's building affordable housing, only 9% of those units that are designated as affordable are truly affordable to local residents. So there's not much being done about these issues. And because of that, over time, about 10,000 Asian residents have left Chinatown and the surrounding area. And about a quarter of residents who are sort of long-term residents who have lived here for over 20 years are now leaving. So these kind of show these are kind of the results of these issues. In this map on the right are soft sites in the area, and I think it's very indicative of some of these issues because these are the sort of opportunity sites for new development, and because they're underbuilt. And so it's kind of seen as an opportunity because if this rezoning passes, these are the sites where you can see new affordable housing development, new small businesses, and the spaces that the community really needs. Or if things kind of go on the path that they've been going, this is where you'll see new luxury development, new out of context buildings, and some of those developments that are going to be kind of perpetuating the speculation and displacement that's been happening. So the plan itself, first, just why a rezoning? This map shows the current zoning of the area that we're looking at. It's a good mix of residential, commercial. There's some manufacturing and parkland. And a rezoning can really address, especially a special district rezoning, can really address a lot of those issues that I've been talking about. It can guide development while ensuring that that development addresses the needs of the local community of existing tenants, because a lot of times development addresses needs of desired residents, but not people who already live in a district. And new measures around climate change, historic preservation can also be included. That's kind of the beauty of a special district, is that you can go beyond what zoning normally dictates. And I think we want to drive home that this isn't really a downzoning. A lot of what's in the plan just sort of reconfigures the zoning to make sure that the development that does happen and does occur on these soft sites is the kind of development that we want to see. That's affordable, that is culturally centered, and promotes the strengths that the community already has. And so just to briefly summarize the proposal, this is sort of the district with sub-districts. Each letter is a sub-district, and each sub-district kind of has its own provisions. But there are also general provisions that apply to the whole special district. And those cover things like anti-harassment, anti-demolition, and residential conversion protections, affordability requirements ranging from 20 to even 100% on certain sites, restrictions on retail square footage and commercial uses to promote small businesses and to keep out kind of big box retail that hurts existing small businesses, additional protections for NYCHA and large cooperative developments to make sure that those developments stay in place, that anything that happens, that management doesn't change in those areas, and that those residents are particularly protected. And as well as a list of sites of significance that we've worked to target to give certain zoning bonuses to those areas, to those sites, to preserve what's built there, raise funds for those buildings, and kind of establish them as historically, architecturally, culturally significant parts of the social fabric.
So Connor, you
Yeah.
have about 10 minutes left. I don't know how much more you want to present, and there's already hands up for questions. Oh, there you
Oh,
go.
perfect. Yeah, so we can definitely take questions.
Okay, Bill?
Okay, so Connor, I actually think I know the answers to these, but maybe for everyone else. The last time that we had a presentation about the CWG, there are some folks who kept on talking about landmarking. But I guess I'm hoping that you can confirm that there actually aren't specific landmarking measures in the CWG. And then the other thing I think people aren't aware of, or some people aren't, is that New York City zoning actually doesn't have like absolute height limits. It's all this convoluted formula around the FAR and stuff. So that's why some of these super talls happen. That's it. Thank you.
Sure. So I think with landmarking, the official landmarking process is kind of separate from a rezoning. That's kind of why we implemented this sites of significance idea, which is not landmarking, but what it does is it provides like zoning relief for buildings like an old church, for example, would be able to transfer floor area, which sites can normally do, but would be able to transfer floor area to a larger geography, so that it acts as a preservation strategy for that site. And yes, with height limits, the normal zoning does not include a height limit, like a strict height limit, but there are contextual districts in the city which do have height limits. It's like a newer version of a zoning district. And, a special district can also implement height limits as well, as it sees fit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Valentina.
Yeah, my question is, on your description there, city planning turned this down 2015, and I can remember this whole thing being brought up. And it was brought up as if there was like almost nothing to do since city planning had said no. And just so often these things that get ULURP when they go to city planning, it's like that's it. And so my question is, how do you plan to, I guess, promote this or make this happen when people made it seem like the no from city planning was like it? And I guess the other two things is, I thought that a piece of it that people liked about it was the fact that I thought that it was supposed to be contextual, so that it should only be about 35 stories, because across the street, LaGuardia is 16 stories high, and almost everybody that goes past that one Manhattan Square is like, what is this? And I think I even read somewhere, it must have been talking about, what do you call this? Central Park area, that some of the reason they didn't have these height requirements is that nobody thought anybody was going to build things taller than the Empire State Building. And I guess the other piece of this question is, in terms of making this happen, one of the things I followed at a point was the East 50s. And I will never forget that. I don't know what ended up happening, but I remember there was a point where they went to court, and what I remember hearing about it was that because the zoning had been done after the people got, permits for the East 50s, that they told them to go ahead and build, and then they would come back to it, whatever. I just remember thinking, yeah, these people are going to build this. This is going to stay here. This sounds very crazy, build. And then if they change their mind or whatever, they would then, I don't know, demolish it or what, but it was crazy sounding to me. But anyway, so that's my question is, how would you get this, how would you promote this and make this happen when people made it seem like DCP's no was like it? And how do you get past something like the East 50s where these people have already gotten permits? And that was really what I remember about the East 50, that since they had a permit, they were allowed to build to whatever.
So I could answer the historical note on that. we're going to have a different commissioner for city planning. We're going to have a different administration. And with that, we're going to have a different council member, right? I don't think this was Margaret's priority to pass the Chinatown working group, right? And even when they were meeting, it always seemed like she never attended hardly any of the meetings, and she didn't want to push this plan forward. I think we have a different situation now where, you know, we have One Manhattan Square, which is like the visualization of what could happen if we don't proactively push a zoning plan like the Chinatown Working Group plan. And it's one of the first things I want to do. And that's why we brought on Connor early on to work on this, develop a plan, update the report, so we could go to city planning and say, let's get the ball rolling to make this work, because this is what the community wanted. And not only did our election show that, but as Connor mentioned earlier on, that people have been out there all fall and winter and collected another 10,000 signatures to demand that this is what the people of the Lower East Side and Chinatown want. And so I think it's just a different time, there's different momentum, and there's different energy that says, like, we have to do this now, especially looking at that map that Connor showed with all the soft sites. Like, we could see towers potentially throughout this district, right? And so that's why, you know, that's why I ran, and this is why we're trying to move forward with this as quickly as possible. Regarding the towers, even though they have filed the permits, that doesn't mean that they have been approved yet. And so that doesn't mean that what they propose in their development plan is already set in stone. And so, yes, things are moving fast, but we still have an opportunity to move faster with this rezoning, and maybe with other methods, whether it's like another lawsuit, to give us enough time to continue to organize and work with city planning to pass this plan.
Thank you. Thanks for that question, and thanks, Chris. Carolyn can't raise her hand, so I don't know where you are online, but I'm going to go ahead and call on you, and then I'll get the other three.
Okay, thanks. I'll be fast because I know we're under some time pressure. This all seems to make so much sense. Connor, thank you for that presentation. Who is, and I think you have current tenants buy-in as well, right? There's a lot of community support. So like, who's opposing it, and what, are there any strong arguments in opposition? Because this seems fairly common sense.
I think Bill hit on a point earlier with landmarks. I think landlords fear that their building will be landmark, and it costs a lot of money to upkeep and renovate a landmark building. But I think a lot of that was just misinformation of why, like, people were against this plan. But actually, as Connor said, it just says that certain buildings, like a church or like Manny Cantor Center, for example, locally, is a building of significance, right? It's a beautiful building, doesn't put any landmark stamp on it. It just says that this building should be kept the way it is, as a recommendation to future generations, kind of thing.
Great, thank you.
And of course, there's like big real estate developers that don't want this plan to go through.
So we have three more questions. If I can ask that the questions and the answers be as short as possible, so we can move on to 5 World Trade Center. But Jeremy, Fanny, and then Lauda.
Thanks, Marion. Two quick questions, actually, that are kind of related just in terms of practically how to describe what's going on. One is, when I look at the map, the area, am I right that the particular part of Grand Street where we all live, the co-ops, is not part of any special sub-district within the district? There are no additional rules on this stretch of Grand Street?
Connor, you want to take that one?
Yes. Yeah, there's, I think you're referring to like the shaded, slightly shaded section. So with that section, some of the, I'll say that some of the areas are in sub-districts and some aren't. And the sub-districts are supposed to get at like really specific things that that community might need. But like, I would say that the majority of the district and the provisions of the district apply district-wide. So like, just because you're not in a sub-district doesn't mean that those provisions don't apply. They still do. It's just there might be a couple added things.
But there aren't. Okay. And then my other question is actually just more about, I'm just trying to visualize some of this stuff. So when you talk about square footage for big box stores, for example, if this plan had been the law 5 years ago or more, would the Target down here have been built? Would the Trader Joe's have been built? Would Whole Foods on Houston have been built? Like what kind of size are we talking about? And are those the sorts of things that would not be allowed under this plan?
Right. So I think with, I'm not exactly sure what the sizes of those are, but what the intention of that part is to really not allow for like a large retail establishment to kind of trump smaller businesses that exist. Except for we do understand that some uses like grocery stores are inherently larger, and that just because you have a large grocery store doesn't mean it's not like it's not beneficial, because it's like grocery stores are great, and there's a different it's tuned so that certain things are allowed at a slightly larger scale, but because you can't put in a provision that says like, oh, it has to be like locally owned. You have to talk about it in like a zoning context. So that's kind of the way that we approach, protecting and promoting small business is through that cap.
Okay, thanks.
Annie?
Hi.
There you are. Hi, Danny.
Hi. So my, I guess it's not really a question. I just want to let Connor and everybody know that I spoke with Chris today about setting up a meeting to discuss maybe adding some protections for East River Park, considering the decision that came down this week. So I don't know, off the top of your head, if you're able to answer, if there's any way that we can put in like any type of protections for the park at all, Connor. If you can't answer, it's fine.
Mm-hmm. I think that's something that maybe we can continue to think about. I know that parks there's not a ton of like specifics when it comes to parks. It's kind of like in the zoning, it's parkland or it's not parkland. And then that comes with its own automatic protections built in, or like provisions built in. But I think, yeah, we can definitely keep thinking about that.
Yeah, so yeah, I just wanted to let the Grand Street Dems know that we are gonna look into that, so.
Great. I think Fanny, like you, I'm very afraid that at some point they'll try to develop on that. Once they put the fill and the cement, then they'll go, oh, let's have some high rises. So I think it is really important to add something that protects against that, if that's why this backroom deal happened to begin with. Lauda.
In the best case scenario, so let's say it's January 1st, and how quickly can this plan that you support, Connor and Chris, how quickly can it be brought to vote in the council, and how optimistic are you that the council will approve it? Mm-hmm. The mayor, if that's necessary. How quickly can that plan be the law of the land?
I think best case scenario, and Connor, you could correct me, is around 7 months. The ULURP process itself takes around, how's the fastest you've ever seen that ULURP process go? Maybe like.
It depends. It's fun. It's interesting because there's a clock requirement for each phase, but if they do it in a day, then it gets cut, then they just move on to the next step. So it's kind of, it usually takes around that amount of time, but it could go quicker depending on how fast the related bodies act.
And one thing to add is that there's rezoning recently, like Soho NoHo, that was expedited to happen within a shorter window. But as Connor said, it really depends of when, for example, when city planning, when Gail Brewer votes on it, when city planning votes on it, when the council votes on it, that triggers the clock, whether it's 30 days, 60 days for the next group to go. But we're going to try to make it go. And that's why we're starting early on this, to make it go as quickly as possible as we can make it. And, even though there has been some disruption to member deference in the council, especially with the Blood Tower in Ben Kalos district, after talking to some of my fellow council members, it seems like it's going to hold for the most part. And so I think there will be council support if I support it as a council member. And, you know, for the mayor himself, like, we're going to continue to organize around this plan. And I think that's the best way we're going to get a guarantee. And, you know, we'll talk to him starting January, but for city planning to take this up will give us a good green light that the mayor wants to move forward with this too.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much for the presentation. Thank you for the questions. We are going to, like I said, at the end of this meeting, we're going to listen to a presentation about 5 World Trade Center, 100% affordable housing. You can see there's kind of a general theme to what we're trying to accomplish in our community, given what's going on. And I want to remind everybody that we voted for Chris because he's so involved in things like this plan. So I'll stop there, but I just do want to say that. So thank you very much. And I think both of the contact addresses are in the chat now for whoever asked for them. Thank you. Connor, will you make that presentation available?
Sure, I can send it somewhere.
Why don't you send it to me, and Melissa will blast it. I'll send it to her and she'll blast it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Victoria, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know you had to leave another meeting to get here, and we've kept you a few minutes late. And before we begin, I want the whole club to know that at our last executive meeting, we were presented with the details of the 5 World Trade Center, 100% affordable housing, and voted unanimously to support it as an executive committee. But we can't really sign on unless the club votes to support it. So you're on. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me again, and for moving forward with this, and thank you to the exec board for supporting this. This is really huge for us. I'm Vittoria Fariello, I'm a district leader downtown, and I'm also a member of the Coalition for 100% Affordable 5 World Trade Center. So 5 World Trade Center, the last site to be designated the World Trade Center, and it's public land. It's owned by the Lower Manhattan Development Corporation, which is a state agency, meaning that it is a public agency, and it's going to be developed using federal funds, mostly in subsidies that the Lower Manhattan Development Corporation has from September 11th. So in the spring of this year, the Lower Manhattan Development Corporation, the LMDC, announced that they were going to give the grant an RFP to Silverstein and Brookfield to build an 80-story luxury building. Then they said they would include 25% affordable houses, units, which would be about 300 units. And they patted themselves on the back, and the community was very upset and came together, and then eventually reached out to me and asked if we could somehow build a coalition to get 100% affordability. So downtown, just off the top of my head, we lost 3 major complexes: Independence Plaza, Gateway Plaza, and the Southbridge Towers, altogether about 5,000 affordable units. And we have we've only added about 100 during that same time period. So it's been, and again, affordability is defined with AMI, which is of course not even necessarily affordable for so many people. So the coalition has been pushing and asking for 100% affordability, and we were able to get Representative Jerry Nadler to write a letter on our behalf. And then Carolyn Maloney also joined in saying, yes, we should do this. And then as a district leader, I presented to the county committee, and all 72 district leaders in Manhattan signed on to the letter to support 100% affordability at 5 World Trade Center. Then 2 weeks ago, we held a forum with a number of elected officials, including, and Chris Marte was there, as was Mark Levine, to support 100% affordability at 5 World Trade Center. And we had an affordable housing expert present how different mechanisms that we can use to fund this. We, of course, there's a huge lack of transparency. We don't know exactly how much money the Lower Manhattan Development Corporation actually has. So, but we know that they will need to find funds elsewhere to build a building of this size. But so we've come a long way. At this forum, at the very end, the agencies agreed to sit down and work with the coalition to work on increasing affordability. So which is huge. It really came very far. And thank you again to the exec board, because it is the support from clubs like yours and other organizations that really helps us. Just so it's out there, the coalition also was seeking a preference for 9/11 survivors, and Mariama James, who is on our steering committee, did a great presentation about how diverse that group actually is. We often think of it as just this downtown Battery Park City financial district area, but it actually reaches very far out. And it's very important to us to have deep affordability, that we have people who make, I think it was families of three that make $35,000 or less a year. We want to make sure that we have, it would be a gradual scale. There would be others as well, but that's really, it's so important to us that we bring diversity to downtown. It's a great site. It is a site, it is right on top of a transportation hub. We have great schools downtown. We have great parks downtown that have not been torn up, like the East River Park. And we have jobs. We're right by a whole bunch of government jobs as well as private jobs. So, you know, it's a perfect site for affordability, and it would make such a statement about what we value. And so I would be so honored to have, of course, we would be so excited to have Grand Street Dems sign on as a full, you know, the club sign on fully. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Yeah, so move on to questions.
Are there any questions people would like to ask? Jeremy?
Yeah, thanks. Hi, Vittoria. Are there any practical or logistic challenges to building an 80-story tower that is affordable? I guess also, like, are there financial challenges to that? How does that, I don't think I know of any 80-story building that's 100% affordable. And I'm just wondering, is that because nobody has that as a priority, or because the either the management challenges of that or the economic challenges of that are kind of outside the scope of what is possible? I really don't know. I'm asking what that might look like.
No, and I appreciate the question, because I'm sure you can imagine a question we get quite a lot. And that's why we reached out to affordable housing experts to try to put together a number of different ways that we can fund this. And important to us too is that we wouldn't be draining funds from other parts of the city in order to fund 5 World Trade Center. So we've come up with Section 8 is one possibility. And there's also, it's a 501c3 bonds that can be used. Again, there's some limitations on that, but they're all ideas that are workable. So the other thing that is really important, so the LMDC is put out the general project plan includes guidelines that actually tie the building to a glass and curvatures and certain like expenses that are really not, we don't need it to be very expensive. Just like marble, countertops and whatnot, because they were looking to make luxury housing, and these are not necessities. I mean, obviously we want nice housing, but it doesn't have to be luxury. So there are ways to scale down the cost, but without a doubt it would be expensive. Without a doubt it would be something unheard of and new, but that's why shouldn't we do that? Why shouldn't New York City be a pioneer in this? This is such a great way to actually make a statement about what we think our priorities are. We spend money on other things and without thinking about it. I actually had a conversation with Robert from Jerry Nadler's office, and I said, yes, I know it's expensive, but the military is expensive too, right? We're making choices with how we're using our money. And this is one way that we think we can make a choice and make a statement with it. So it would be expensive, but it's doable. It's imminently doable.
Great,
Thank you. Laura.
So I had not understood before, so it would still be an 80-story tower, and has it, you know, how is it compared to the towers around it, and you know, would it be a good thing for the immediate neighborhood?
Sure. So it's right. It's so I don't know if you're familiar with the World Trade Center site, but surrounding the World Trade Center site, we have the one World Trade Center, which is 100 stories, 110 stories, and then I believe 4 World Trade. I believe that might be 80 stories as well. So it would be like a crown around the World Trade Center Memorial site. So it really wouldn't interfere in any way, and that's why, you know, for the community, it seems like it's empty plot of land. We're not displacing anybody. It's not a historical district that we're going to destroy. It's just perfect for this. So yeah, so definitely contextually, it works really well.
So it would be like 1,000 apartments or 1,200 apartments? Or...
So yeah, so they go back and forth between 1,200 and 1,300 apartments. And they also put out, you know, but again, the lack of transparency has been a real difficulty for us. They came up with certain numbers with the costs, but they were not, they couldn't show us where those numbers came from, and they were disputed by a number of other people, experts who have actually built affordable housing. So you know, unfortunately, we gotta just keep pushing. Yeah.
Thank you. Michelle.
Thanks, Marianne. I have 2 questions, Vittoria. Thanks for coming to explain this for us. So one is, it sounds like this project from your answer to Jeremy is going to be quite expensive just because building tall is expensive. So do you think that it would actually be more efficient and effective to build units, you know, if the funding can be secured, which it sounds like that actually might be a challenge, would it be better to build those units elsewhere just because building tall is so expensive? And second of all, how long do you think it would take to actually find the funding before you think it would make sense to actually just go ahead with a project that had 25% affordability, because we're in such a housing crunch right now? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. And those are great questions. So like I said, this is something that really matters to the coalition. We really, you know, we feel strongly that we don't want to be taking affordability away from anywhere else. However, this is a very unique opportunity to do this. And a lot of the funds would come from the federal government. And there are, again, lack of transparency from the LMDC. Our estimate of from what we could gather from the documents that we were able to review from the Lower Manhattan Development Corporation, we believe that they have between 175 and $200 million left from the 9/11 funds. So that's a significant chunk into what.
Vittoria, are you
You're muted.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Okay. Just last a second.
Oh my goodness. Okay. I'm not sure where I got cut off there. So essentially, there are funds that are designated for the Lower Manhattan Development Corporation that would make a significant would be a significant help to the cost of this, of building this building. And we also there's because Representative Nadler and Carolyn Maloney would be very interested in helping out. They would try to secure, in fact, Build Back Better actually does make it through. They were going to try to secure some funds that way as well. I think why is the site so great is, I think, again, it's because what I said, it's a resource-rich site. If we can bring people who otherwise couldn't afford to live in the neighborhood, they have great, rich resources there, right? Like, again, we have really great public schools, we have great parks. We have right on top of, the Fulton Street stop, which has every subway and the path. And it's in walking distance of any of, multiple government jobs as well as the private jobs, right? We have Wall Street and we have the courthouses and we have City Hall and we have Goldman Sachs. So, there's really, it's such a resource rich neighborhood, and it's just, it seems like it's the perfect place to do this.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? We're running a little over in time, but not bad. Vittoria, I was at the panel where issues about funding were raised. So I understand that there's going to have to be a lot of creativity to make the funding happen. And that I think we all understand that the 80-20 or the MIH housing that we do is neither affordable enough nor sufficient for the kind of housing that's needed for people with low and low to middle income. Also, something that we sent the link out, so I'm hoping everyone looked at the website, but it's also going to have preference given for, can you talk about this, Vittoria, for people who are involved in at 9/11 in some way?
Right. So preference for 9/11 survivors as well as first responders. And so the survivors, again, this was, people tend to think of survivors as the immediately surrounding area, but the truth is it's actually a pretty wide area. It's defined by the LMGC itself. It goes all the way up to 14th Street and includes all the Lower East Side and Chinatown as well. So there's actual, and people who lived or worked or went to school there during that time. So we have people from all over. And Mariama, who was, she did a fantastic presentation for us, said that, the actual, if you look at the demographics of 9/11 survivors, they are actually a majority non-white. So, which is something that we want to, to us, it's a very important thing, again, to bring diversity into the district. So, yeah, so there's a preference. And again, that's something that we have to get details. It's just a miracle that we've gotten as far as we have, that they're actually going to talk to us to increase the amount. So we're working on all those things on all those fronts as well.
That's great. Thank you very much for presenting.
Thank
If
you.
nobody else has questions, I'm going to ask everyone who's a non-voting member to leave the meeting. We loved having you here.
Bye, Vittoria. Thank you.
We loved your presentations. We loved hearing about everything. But what we'd like to do now is to have an old school vote before Kenny gets our new age vote going on for next time. And Kenny's going to check. Bill's going to check. Kenny's going to check that everybody's still on is in fact a voting member.
Mm-hmm.
So you want a minute to do that?
I am looking. Taj? No, Valentina, Taj, are they members? I don't think they're voting members. So
To be a voting member, you have to be a member for 90 days
Taj
or
just
more.
dropped off. I'm not sure if Valentina Jones is a member. Everyone else seems to be. I'm just confirming. I've been keeping track all night, so.
Bill, you have a question?
Is Taj and I don't think Taj and Valentina.
I'm voting.
Oh, you're voting. Okay. Taj, you can't stay on and vote because you haven't been a member for 90 days.
I'm just seeing two people that might not be.
So we welcome your vote in the
Yeah.
future for sure. But if you could drop off, that would be great.
Okay.
We'll see you next time, okay?
Okay. You too.
Great. All right, how are we doing now?
Hold on a second. Did Valentina drop off? Otherwise, we're good.
I don't see her on anymore.
Okay, then we're fine. We're perfect.
So
We're good.
let's start with the Chinatown Working Group Zoning Plan. And does everyone know how to vote with your, the reaction, raise hand? So,
And then we just have to count you, me, and Melissa. Marion, also. We just have to.
Oh, because we can't raise our
Because
hands.
we
Okay,
can't raise our hands.
all right, so everybody who votes yes on the to sign on to the Chinatown Working Group zoning plan, please raise your hand.
I can raise my hand.
Oh, yeah, I can raise my hand too.
Oh, you can. raise your hand. Oh, I can't.
How are we doing, Kenny?
Oh, am I supposed to be counting people? Okay.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3,
19.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Oh, it's definitely a
10, 11,
majority.
12, 13, 14 people I've already seen raise their hands.
And
And
the
there's
ones,
22 people.
and the rest of
19.
us raised our hand physically. Okay, so we are
Okay,
now
so I don't need to keep track
officially,
of everyone we voted.
we are now officially signed on. And I mean, it's been the big running campaign of our new city council member-elect. So very proud of us. Thank you very much. Yay. Okay, so now can everyone lower their hand? I'll try to lower what I can. Well, I guess you can leave your hand up if you're going to vote also yes on 5 World Trade. So basically what we're doing for 5 World Trade is signing on as members of a coalition in support of the idea of 100% affordable housing at 5 World Trade Center that focuses, that gives special attention to people who were impacted by 9/11. And we're not promising to pay for it. We're just signing on in theory as that we think it's a good idea. So again, raise your hand. I'm raising mine in person.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 hands I see raised.
It's 16 hands plus Marion.
15. Yeah, so 16. Okay.
So out of,
That's 18 out of 22.
okay, so that passes too.
Adds it up for me because I'm a co-host.
So we are now joining the coalition of people in support. I'll write this up and send it out to everyone to make sure we write it up correctly. In support of 100% affordable housing at 5 World Trade Center. I think you all raised some really good questions and concerns. I share some of them, but I also think we have to start doing things. We can't keep doing things the way we've been doing them. So any comments? I cannot believe it is 8:28 and we did all that and voted.
Great job, great job.
Wow, really great.
So just 1, 2, 3, our next general meeting is January 18th. And we will have a bunch of assembly district candidates speaking to us. I don't even know how many yet because it's like a moving puzzle. And then
really does have a question now.
Marion,
Oh, yes.
unless you missed it, can you update everyone about the status of the races that you know, as you know, I know it's in flux in terms of who's running, who's out, things like that?
Oh, yes, I can do that. Okay, then the next meeting is February 15th. And I don't think we'll have anyone else. So the Assembly 65, as I know, as of today, is Grace Lee, Alana Sivan, Iapa Sari Tupac, and Jasmine Sanchez.
Wait, Alana's running for assembly?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
There's a question. I mean, there keeps being question marks because nobody's actually filed.
Has anybody
said-
who's on this call announced that they are running for that seat yet?
That's a good question, Lee. Joe Gordon. Do you want everybody or you just wanted that one?
You just nominated yourself to run for Assembly seat District 65.
Yeah, your hand was up. It's like, what? Bill, did you want me to go over all of them or just those?
Whatever, just,
Okay,
I just thought
Attorney-
the assembly and the Senate would be interesting.
Okay, State Committee, Joshua Goodman from DID is running for that. I don't know of anybody else that's running. The District 12, Carolyn Maloney, Rana Abdelhamid, Jesse Serrati, Maya Contreras, Mike Fitzgerald, Vladimir Joseph, I don't know who's running against Nydia Velasquez yet or Nadler. I think you all know the governor, Kathy Hochul, Nikolai Bunia, Paul Nichols, Tom Swozey, and Jamani Williams. That's it. Was there anyone else local? Everybody else dropped out. We've already interviewed 2 people who are no longer in the Senate race, the state Senate race. So it's now Brian Kavanaugh. What did I just lose that? Iapa's not in that one anymore. Yuline's in it.
Yulene is in it.
And I think there's some question
And
that,
Victoria's in it.
and Vittoria, thank you.
Yeah.
And I think that there's some question that Jenny Lowe will either run for the Assembly, probably not for the Senate, but probably for the Assembly. But I don't have a definite on that yet.
Carolyn, do you want to announce your Zoom?
Oh, sure. This is not a Grand Street Dems
Good.
event, but I am having a Zoom meet and greet with Vittoria tomorrow. It did go out, so if you're on the Grand Street Dems mailing list, you would have gotten it. But we're Zooming tomorrow to hear more from Vittoria from 6 until about 7. And yeah.
Are you sending wine around to our houses?
I would love to. You guys, I was looking forward to in person so much. And then it was like masked inside, and now we're back on these stupid Zoom boxes for a little while longer.
I'm not allowed in the rest of the house right now.
I know, I'm sorry. Yeah.
You're not the only one in the
guys, is everyone okay? I mean, like, does anyone need some Gatorade? Like
I pounded 2 today just in case.
Carolyn, I'll be honest, for me, I've had hangovers that hurt more. I mean, it really wasn't bad.
Well,
You know,
good.
Hallelujah
was-
boosters then.
Yeah,
Right, yeah, that's right.
Back, so I'm fine, but
Yeah.
you know, I just
And-
hope.
And our niece was here and I'm negative and she was negative. So it's not, this is not like the nightmare at the beginning. It's just a big drag.
And by the way, I just wanted to mention, all the political maneuvering is being done in the absence of any political lines actually having been drawn.
Right, thank you.
So none of the potential candidates even know if they're in the district they're allegedly running for.
Right.
Actually, let me just say, let me say one more thing. There's 3 additional meetings that we're going to attend to do forums. I think we sent it out, but one is January 22nd, one is January 23rd, and one is January 29th. All that you can come to, that would be great. We'll send out more information. They'll all be recorded. Just so you can get more information from all the candidates.
Sandra, do you have a question or you want to speak, or is that a vote with your hand up?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't lower my hand.
There you go. Okay, well, it was really great to see everyone tonight. I'm really excited about the vote. Fanny, thank you so much for talking about zoning in the park. Finally, what used to be my insanity has become reality. Julie, did you have something you wanted to say? Oh.
Let's see. I just wanted to say hello. I'm still at work. It's been crazy. The COVID stuff is crazy.
Oh, I bet.
The volume of calls.
Staff shortages, or
What'd you say?
is it like staff shortages, or you're saying volume of calls?
It's everything. We have a lot of people reporting in sick, a lot. The volume is crazy. So I think whatever happens here reflects the city. So, I'm still here. I've been here since 10 o'clock.
Oh, wow.
Julie.
Well, thank you for
Let's
joining
encourage
us.
someone, guys.
So listen, everybody, if you celebrate this holiday, enjoy it. If you don't, enjoy a day off or 2. Be careful, be so careful, because this thing is really very, very virulent. So not in a sickness way, but in a contagion way. So thank you all for tonight, and we'll see you next month.
Bye.
Happy holidays.
Night, everybody. Happy holidays. Stay safe.
Bye. Happy holidays.
Bye, thanks.